What if everything you've been taught about World War II was a lie? What if I told you that some of the most powerful figures of the Nazi regime didn't just survive the war, but were secretly protected by a global network that still operates in the shadows? Today, you'll uncover how major war criminals were kept alive and protected for decades after the war, and how the world's biggest secrets continue to be hidden from us. Get ready. What you're about to hear may forever change what you think you know about the post-war era. In 2009, a shocking analysis was conducted on one of the most mysterious skulls in history. For decades, it was believed that Adolf Hitler's skull had been found in his bunker after his death in 1945. However, forensic tests on this skull revealed something disturbing. The skull did not belong to a man, but to a woman. This fact contradicted the entire official narrative, raising doubts about the veracity of the story of his death and sparking a new wave of questions. If the skull wasn't Hitler's, then what happened to his body? And if Hitler survived, where was he? After the war, the FBI launched an intense investigation into Hitler's final days. Leaked documents indicate that for over 30 years, US government agents were in search of evidence proving Hitler's escape. In 1947, the FBI issued a report classifying the Nazi leader as a target of interest, with information suggesting he had fled to South America. The connection to Argentina became increasingly evident, especially after sightings of a man resembling Hitler in various parts of the continent. Why did the hunt for Hitler continue for so long if everyone believed he had died in 1945? The mystery surrounding Hitler's death doesn't end with the documents and DNA analysis. In 2022, a Nazi submarine, supposedly sunk during the war, was found mysteriously off the coast of Argentina. The U-58, as it became known, brought to light new details about the possible escape of Hitler and his allies. The question remains, if Hitler really died in his bunker, why did the search never stop? The world had been led to believe a much bigger lie. Perhaps the real story of his death has never been told. The end of World War II seemed inevitable for the Nazi regime. By April 1945, Germany was completely surrounded by Allied forces, and Berlin was on the verge of falling. In the heart of the city, in an underground bunker, Adolf Hitler faced his final battle. Inside that claustrophobic space, immersed in chaos, the Führer made a decision that would change the course of history. He would not surrender. Instead, the narrative of his death in the bunker was fueled by reports indicating that Hitler had committed suicide alongside Eva Braun. But what really happened there? And what if, in fact, Hitler had escaped at the height of the defeat? According to various eyewitness accounts and recently declassified documents, April 28, 1945, was not what the official history has told us. It is known that Hitler and Eva Braun had a secret plan to escape Berlin, using a meticulously planned escape route that passed through a complex system of tunnels and a getaway plane. The official version, which claims they both committed suicide in the bunker, seems to be a cover-up. The secret escape route, according to some investigations, led them first to a rendezvous point in the underground subway system of Berlin, where a Ju-52 aircraft was waiting to take the couple out of the city. According to a 1947 report, Hitler's plane would have taken off heading for Denmark, and from there, he and Eva Braun would have continued to Spain and, finally, to the Canary Islands. Afterward, a Nazi submarine, U-58, would be responsible for taking them to a safe location in South America, specifically Argentina. Although the wreckage of the plane was never found, several witnesses claim the couple disappeared without a trace, and the documents of the time indicate there was an intense effort to cover up any clues about Hitler's whereabouts. The question remains, why was Hitler's body never found, and why was the story altered so many times? The end of World War II did not mark the disappearance of all Nazi secrets. One of the most unsettling elements that fuels the theory of Hitler's escape is the mystery surrounding the U-58, a Nazi submarine that was supposedly sunk in 1945. Official Allied reports claim the submarine met its end after a failed mission, but the disappearance of its wreckage has raised serious doubts. For decades, no evidence surfaced to support the official narrative. The absence of a submarine wreck on the ocean floor is strange, to say the least, and many investigators believe this was part of a much larger cover-up. Could the U-58 have been part of a covert operation to move key Nazi officials to safety, including the one man most wanted by the Allies, Adolf Hitler? The first reports that suggested the U-58 was still operational came from Argentina in 1947. Commissioner Maradi, an Argentine police officer, claimed to have seen a strange, military-looking submarine off the coast of Argentina just a few days after the official sinking of the U-58. This report was dismissed by authorities at the time, but decades later, new investigations have cast serious doubt on the official story. Some believe that the U-58 was not destroyed in battle but rather deliberately hidden. In 2022, Argentine historian and researcher Abel Busti made a stunning claim. He had found a wreck off the coast of Patagonia that appeared to match the description of the U-58. However, due to the secrecy surrounding the region and the wreck's remote location, no official investigation has been able to confirm whether it is indeed the submarine. If the U-58 truly survived the war, what does that mean for the story of Hitler's death? Could it have played a key role in facilitating his escape from Europe to South America? For years, researchers have speculated that several high-ranking Nazi officials, including Hitler himself, were relocated to Argentina using a network of submarines and covert passageways. The possibility that the U-58 may have been one of these vessels opens up a chilling new chapter in this mystery. Yet, the absence of concrete evidence only deepens the enigma. Was the submarine's wreckage purposefully concealed to protect a larger conspiracy? What does it say about the lengths taken to ensure the survival of Nazi leadership? Martin Bormann, Hitler's closest confidant and chief strategist, played a pivotal role in the Nazis' efforts to escape prosecution after the war. Although often overshadowed by more infamous figures like Himmler and Goebbels, Bormann's influence was vast, and his plans for the future of Nazi Germany extended far beyond the final days in Berlin. After Hitler's apparent death in the bunker, Bormann went underground, managing an intricate network that spanned multiple continents. His true power lay in a global web of companies, hidden funds, and secret passageways. This empire wasn't just about protecting the remnants of the Nazi Party, it was about ensuring that the ideology and influence of the Reich would never die. Documents uncovered from classified archives suggest that Bormann controlled as many as 750 companies across 15 countries, with the explicit goal of laundering Nazi funds and hiding the wealth that had been amassed during the war. While many of these companies operated in the shadows, some had legal standing in Europe and South America. It was through these businesses that Bormann was able to funnel money to former Nazi officials who fled to Argentina, providing them with new identities and financial support. His global network ensured that no matter where former Nazis went, they would have a lifeline. This was the hidden empire that kept Nazi leadership alive long after the fall of the Third Reich. What is even more disturbing is the evidence suggesting that Bormann did not simply hide his wealth and influence. He actively collaborated with several governments to continue his operations. Historical accounts and declassified documents reveal that both the Vatican and the Red Cross were instrumental in helping Nazi criminals escape Europe. They provided fake passports and logistical support for high-ranking officials like Bormann to disappear into the quiet corners of South America. The implications of this collaboration go far beyond just the escape of individual Nazis. It raises questions about the role that these powerful institutions played in protecting the Nazi regime's legacy. If Bormann orchestrated the escape of the Nazi elite, who else was involved in his plan, and what other secrets does this network still hide? After the fall of the Nazi regime, a covert operation was set in motion to ensure that top Nazis could escape punishment and continue their work in secret. This operation was not solely carried out by the surviving remnants of the Reich, but involved powerful external organizations that provided assistance. Among them were the Vatican and the Red Cross, which played a crucial role in helping these individuals escape Europe under new identities. These two institutions, often seen as humanitarian organizations, became entangled in a web of deceit, providing forged documents and safe havens for some of the most notorious war criminals in history. The Vatican, in particular, had a history of helping people flee Europe during the war, but many now believe that this assistance went far beyond refugees and included Nazis. One of the most notorious figures in the escape network was Bishop Alois Hudel, an Austrian cleric who served as a key intermediary between the Nazis and these institutions. Hitler, known for his pro-Nazi sentiments, helped orchestrate a complex route for fleeing war criminals, which became known as the Ratlins. These routes passed through countries like Italy, Spain, and Argentina, allowing former Nazis to reach safety in South America. The role of the Vatican in facilitating these escapes has long been debated, with some claiming that it was a moral obligation to protect those fleeing the aftermath of war, while others argue that it was a deliberate effort to shield the perpetrators of war crimes from justice. The involvement of the Red Cross in this process has also come under scrutiny. According to reports, the organization not only provided medical aid to the victims of the war but also assisted Nazi fugitives in obtaining false documentation to make their way to safety. While many of the organization's efforts were undoubtedly humanitarian, it is now evident that some within its ranks were complicit in helping war criminals escape. This cooperation between seemingly innocent humanitarian organizations and the Nazi network raises critical questions about the true extent of the Nazi escape operation. How deep did this collaboration go? Were these organizations acting under duress, or were they complicit in the cover-up of the greatest crimes against humanity? Patagonia, the vast, untamed region of southern Argentina and Chile, has long been a place of mystery and intrigue. Its remote location with towering mountains, dense forests, and rugged coastlines made it an ideal hiding spot for those seeking to disappear. In the years following World War II, it became a sanctuary for numerous Nazi fugitives, including high-ranking officers who had escaped justice. With its sparse population, difficult terrain, and relative inaccessibility, Patagonia offered a perfect blend of security and seclusion. But beyond the physical isolation, Patagonia also became a hotbed for covert operations, with local governments turning a blind eye to the influx of foreign settlers, many of whom were former Nazis. In the early 1950s, the government of Juan Domingo Perón, the then president of Argentina, played a significant role in helping Nazi war criminals settle in Patagonia. Perón's administration, keen on developing the region and bolstering Argentina's ties to Europe, welcomed these former Nazis with open arms. They were given protection, false identities, and even financial support to help them establish new lives in the remote corners of the country. In exchange for this refuge, many of the Nazis brought with them valuable knowledge and expertise, particularly in the fields of science, technology, and military strategy. They became an integral part of Argentina's efforts to modernize, all while remaining shielded from international scrutiny. What makes Patagonia even more sinister is the evidence suggesting that the region housed clandestine medical facilities treating former Nazis for a variety of ailments, including Parkinson's disease and other neurological disorders. These treatments were not just for the sake of health, but for the continued survival of the fugitives who had escaped Europe's grasp. The medical care provided in these secret facilities was state-of-the-art, and some even believe that it was part of a larger effort to develop and experiment with new technologies and procedures. Patagonia, once seen as a remote and unexplored land, had become a sanctuary for the remnants of the Nazi regime, one where their dark legacy could endure in secret. But as more evidence emerges, one must ask, what else was hidden in the shadow of the Andes? In 1946, an intercepted message sent from an unknown source caught the attention of the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, the precursor to the CIA. The cryptic message simply read, "The package has arrived." While its true meaning was obscured, the OSS immediately sprang into action, analyzing every possible interpretation. The phrase was unsettling, suggesting the arrival of something or someone of extreme importance. Intelligence agencies believed the package referred to a shipment of valuable resources or people. As investigations deepened, it became clear that the package was no ordinary delivery. It was a coded reference to a high-profile Nazi figure whose presence in Argentina was being carefully hidden from the outside world. The destination of this mysterious package was Bariloche, a small, picturesque town in the Argentine Andes. Known for its Swiss-like alpine architecture and scenic beauty, Bariloche was also home to a significant German expatriate community. This town, isolated yet strategic, was the ideal location for hiding in plain sight. The Nazis who had escaped to South America often found refuge here, blending in with the local population, who had no desire to question the influx of foreign settlers. The message's arrival seemed to indicate that a major figure, perhaps even one of the highest-ranking officials from the Third Reich, had arrived in Bariloche, ready to join the network of Nazi fugitives already established in Patagonia. What was the true nature of this arrival, and what role would this individual play in the post-war world? Bariloche's role as a sanctuary for Nazi fugitives is well documented, yet the full extent of its involvement in this clandestine operation remains shrouded in secrecy. The Alpenhaus complex, a luxury compound hidden deep in the mountains, was allegedly constructed to house high-ranking Nazi officials. This facility, with its elegant yet discreet design, provided all the comforts of a European estate, yet it was heavily protected and guarded from outsiders. Evidence suggests that important Nazi figures, including scientists and military experts, were hidden within its walls. Was this truly just a luxury retreat for the elite, or was it a hub for an even larger, darker operation? As we examine the eerie silence surrounding Bariloche's role in the post-war era, the question remains: what was the real purpose of the package that arrived in this mysterious town? After World War II, many believed that the Nazi regime had been defeated, and its leaders either met their end or were captured. However, the truth is far darker. The infamous figures who escaped justice were not only alive, but they were also living in South America, particularly in Argentina. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death, responsible for horrendous experiments on Jewish prisoners, was one of the most notorious figures who found refuge in the heart of Argentina. For decades, rumors of his existence in the country surfaced, with witnesses claiming to have seen him in various remote towns. Similarly, Adolf Eichmann, one of the architects of the Holocaust, lived in Argentina for several years under an assumed identity, working as a laborer while avoiding capture by the Israeli Mossad. The Nazi fugitives' lives were not ones of hiding in the shadows. In fact, their presence was largely ignored or even accepted by the local population, many of whom sympathized with their ideology or were unaware of their past crimes. Hotels, ranches, and even schools with German names became places where the Nazis could live openly, blending into the landscape of Argentina. German-speaking communities continued to thrive, with families establishing lives far away from the scrutiny of the international community. However, as time went on, a growing number of reports surfaced of sightings, even suggesting that some Nazis had been seen leading active lives, continuing their work with organizations that echoed the ideas of the regime they once served. What is even more chilling is the testimony of people who claim to have seen Hitler himself, alive and in the flesh, after the supposed end of his life in 1945. Witnesses have reported his presence in small towns and remote regions of South America, where he allegedly lived out his final days in secrecy. Could this be true? Did the world's most notorious dictator somehow survive the war and escape to the unknown corners of the world? The presence of high-ranking Nazis in Argentina was not just a footnote of history, it was a deeply ingrained part of a much larger global web of deception and protection. But as more of these figures came into the light, the question persists: how many more Nazis were hidden in plain sight, and how much of this covert network remains concealed to this day? In 1955, Argentina's President Juan Domingo Perón was ousted in a military coup, causing a dramatic shift in the country's political landscape. Perón had been a key ally of the Nazis, providing sanctuary to countless war criminals. Under his regime, Argentina became a safe haven for high-ranking Nazis who had escaped Europe. With Perón's fall from power, however, the protective infrastructure that shielded these fugitives began to crumble. Suddenly, many of the Nazis who had once lived openly in Argentina found themselves at risk. But the network that had shielded them for so long wasn't about to let them go so easily. A new phase of their survival began, one that involved even greater secrecy and far-reaching international connections. As the years passed, reports of sightings of Hitler in South America emerged with increasing frequency. The most notable claim came from a Venezuelan politician in the late 1950s, who swore he had encountered Hitler in the remote areas of the country. According to the politician, the man he met had unmistakable physical traits that matched those of the Nazi leader, including distinctive facial features and a peculiar limp. These accounts were dismissed as conspiracy theories for years, but there were other corroborating stories of people who believed they saw Hitler in various locations across Latin America. Some even claimed to have spoken to him directly, though no one could ever provide definitive proof. Could these reports have been more than just rumors? Could it be that Hitler had indeed survived and continued his life far from the watchful eyes of the world? A CIA document dating back to the early 1960s would add fuel to the fire of these claims. It detailed a mysterious sighting of a man believed to be Adolf Hitler in the Venezuelan jungle. The document was archived alongside other intelligence reports, with no further explanation. The possibility that such a high-profile figure could have been sheltered by multiple governments, aided by covert organizations, seemed too outlandish for many. But in the world of global espionage, is anything truly impossible? With Péron's downfall and the collapse of his protective network, these Nazis found new ways to operate in the shadows, spreading their influence across continents. And as the years went on, the secrets of their survival began to slip into the cracks of history, leaving more questions than answers. After World War II ended, a covert operation known as Operation Paperclip was launched by the United States. The objective? To recruit Nazi scientists who had once been involved in some of the most dangerous research of the war, particularly in the fields of rocketry and weapons development. Among the most infamous recruits was Wernher von Braun, the brilliant but controversial scientist who would later lead the American space program. Von Braun, along with over 1,600 other Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians, was brought to the United States, where they were given new identities and allowed to continue their work in American laboratories and military facilities. This operation would shape the future of space exploration and military technology, but at what cost? The United States, in desperate need of technological superiority over the Soviet Union during the early days of the Cold War, was willing to overlook the dark pasts of these scientists. In return for their expertise, the US government provided them with immunity from prosecution for war crimes. Many of these men had been directly involved in horrifying experiments, including the use of slave labor and medical testing on prisoners. Yet, instead of facing justice for their actions, they were granted a fresh start and integrated into the very heart of the US defense and space industries. The question remained: could the US government justify sheltering these war criminals in the name of national security? As the years passed, Operation Paperclip's legacy became more and more controversial. The success of the US space program and the development of military technologies, such as the V-2 rockets and later the Saturn V, which put a man on the moon, were all made possible by the work of these former Nazis. But while the advancements in science were undeniable, the ethical cost of such collaborations remained a dark shadow. The American public remained largely unaware of the moral compromises made in the pursuit of progress. What did the US government truly gain from this deal with the devil? And how many other secrets from this operation are still locked away in classified files, hidden from public view? The horrors of Nazi experimentation during World War II are well documented, but what is less known is how these dark practices found their way into the United States after the war. Under Operation Paperclip, many Nazi scientists, who had once conducted inhumane experiments on prisoners, were not only brought to America to advance military and space programs, but their research, including the development of biological weapons and human experimentation, followed them. Scientists like Erich Traub, who conducted experiments with biological weapons, including the Lyme disease bacterium, were integrated into US projects that would lead to the development of new weapons and military strategies. These scientists continued their work, now on American soil, where their controversial research was used in the name of national security. One of the most chilling legacies of this transfer was the continuation of human experimentation. In the US, the research done by these Nazi scientists helped propel the country into the forefront of Cold War bioweapons development. Programs were created to weaponize diseases like anthrax and to study the effects of toxins on humans in the name of military advantage. At times, the lines between scientific progress and pure cruelty were blurred. In labs across the country, experiments were conducted on unwitting civilians and military personnel, pushing the boundaries of ethics and human rights in the pursuit of new weapons. Documents declassified over the years have revealed a disturbing truth. Much of the experimentation was done without the informed consent of those involved, just as it had been in the Nazi concentration camps. Despite the secrecy surrounding these programs, fragments of evidence continued to surface. Archives containing research papers, photos, and reports are slowly being made available, revealing the true extent of these sinister experiments. But there are still many unanswered questions. What other experiments were conducted that remain classified? What lengths did the US government go to in order to protect these scientists from accountability? And more disturbingly, how much of this dark science continued to shape US research well into the late 20th century? These questions remain as unanswered as the many documents that are still locked away in government archives, hidden from the public eye. After World War II, the United States and its allies faced a harsh reality. The Nazis they had defeated were not just dead bodies to be buried. They were dangerous, skilled individuals who could be invaluable in the fight against communism. This led to Operation Paperclip, which facilitated the recruitment of over 1,600 German scientists. But the covert operations did not stop there. The CIA, in its zealous pursuit of technological supremacy, went much further. Documents, including highly classified records of Nazi war criminals, were systematically destroyed to erase any trace of the truth. Not only were these scientists brought to the US, but the US government also went so far as to create new, falsified identities to protect them from prosecution. Thousands of Nazi officers, doctors, and engineers were given new lives, blending into society and continuing their work under the guise of legitimate employment. The scope of this operation is almost too shocking to fathom. It wasn't just a matter of protecting scientists, it was an entire infrastructure built to shield war criminals. The CIA's involvement in this process was massive, providing both resources and political cover for the Nazis who had been accused of some of the most horrific crimes in history. But the extent of this protection wasn't just about keeping these individuals safe, it was about keeping their knowledge, their research, and their advancements a closely guarded secret. The end result was a global network of Nazi sympathizers who continued their work under the radar, perpetuating their sinister agenda without the public ever knowing. But even more chilling is the fact that many of the operations surrounding these Nazis were never fully disclosed. As the years passed, classified CIA documents were sealed away under the pretense of national security. Key figures in the US government, such as Allen Dulles, the head of the CIA, were instrumental in orchestrating this hidden agenda. Did they truly believe that they were securing the nation's future by sheltering these individuals, or was something darker at play? The question remains, did the US trade one evil for another, unknowingly building an even greater threat, all for the promise of power? And how deep does the rabbit hole really go? After everything we've revealed, one crucial question remains. What else is being hidden from us? If such powerful figures manage to escape justice, what does that mean for the history we've been told? Is what we know about the end of World War II truly complete? Or is there a vast abyss of secrets buried beneath? Did the great powers hide more than just a Nazi leader? Could there still be a shadowy game of power influencing the world today? Now, I ask you, do you believe Hitler really died in the bunker in 1945? Or did he escape, protected by a network of powerful individuals still pulling the strings behind the scenes? What else is being kept in the shadows? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you think. If you want to continue exploring these hidden mysteries, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Get ready, because there's still much more to uncover.